Black Ops Chapter 7. Rita made it through the next day at school, but not without sufficiently corresponding stress. She had to finish a paper, so Uncle John said he would come pick her up at the end of his shift. She finished early and gave him a call, as she waited near the front entrance. He soon arrived when she got a call from Mr. Cousins. "Rita, I know it's Tuesday, but if it's all right with your aunt and uncle, can you come into work tonight? Frankie couldn't come in, and we're short a cook," Mr. Cousins explained. "Give me a second," Rita said and pulled the phone away. "Can I go to work tonight? I finished my homework at school and the bowling alley closes at 8 tonight, so I should be done by 9. Uncle John looked at her. "I'll pick you up." "Yes, sir," Rita was excited. "I can come, but I don't have a shirt with me." "Thank you, Rita, you're a lifesaver." "Don't worry about the shirt, I'll give you a new one," Mr. Cousins said with a sigh. Uncle John drove up to the bowling alley and Mr. Cousins came outside to thank him. "Thank you, John." Mr. Cousins shook John's hand as he got out of the car. "It's not a problem, Stan. As long as she has her homework done, and it won't be too late, me and Shelley don't mind," John expressed. "Thanks, Uncle John." Rita waved at him and went inside. She met Jay at the counter and he handed her the shirt. She went to the bathroom and changed and immediately went to the kitchen. She put her apron on and started working. Everything started to die down about 8:30 and Jay walked over to talk to her. "I'm glad you could come in," Jay said with a smile. "I am too," she smiled back. "I didn't think I would see you this afternoon." "What are you going to do after graduation?" Jay asked her. "You mean this summer?" Rita looked up at him as she started her cleaning. Jay nodded from the other side of the counter. "Working, I guess, taking a few days off occasionally and having fun." She looked over at him wondering if he was getting at something. "You?" "Same, I guess," Jay shrugged. "I start basic training in the fall." "I know," she smiled at him. "You're going to be a military man." "Not just the military, I'm going to be a Marine," Jason grinned at her. She laughed at him. "Hey guys," Mr. Cousins said, "let's close up early, everyone has cleared out." Jason ran and locked the front door and Rita started working on the kitchen. She had got so good in the kitchen she was done in about 20 minutes. She then went to the floor and started emptying the trash cans by the lanes. She walked from can to can with the cart, pulling out the full bags, putting them in the cart and then replacing the bag, and moving on to the next one. She completed the last one and headed to the side door. "Wait," Jay yelled after her. "I'll come with you. Are you going to help me get these in the dumpster?" She smiled at him. "Yep." He grinned and they started throwing the bags over the top. She went to pull the cart in when he grabbed her and pulled her close. He leaned in and kissed her. She enjoyed the brief moment and held on to him. She then saw a shadow shift out of the corner of her eye. She knew it wasn't a coincidence and pulled Jason and the cart back in the building. "Bolt the door," Rita said a little panicky. "What's wrong?" Jason questioned her while bolting the door. She immediately pulled out her phone and dialed her uncle. The phone rang and rang, but he didn't answer. "Come on, answer," Rita said in desperation. After several calls, Rita tried the dispatcher. "Sally, is there any way you can get in touch with Uncle John?" Rita asked the dispatcher. "He's on a SWAT call, honey," the dispatcher explained. "He'll have to call you later." "Please have him get in touch with me as soon as he can," Rita asked the dispatcher. "As soon as he's off the call, I'll let him know." Rita then hung up and tried to call Michael's. "What is dash?" Michael's statement cut off in mid-sentence. "Hello?" Rita questioned and didn't get an answer. She looked at her phone. It had no signal. "Check your phone. Do you have a signal?" Rita questioned. Jason looked at his phone and up at Rita. "I don't have one. They are blocking the signals." Rita walked over to the phone on the counter at the front desk. There isn't a dial tone. She turned to Jason. "Do you have your bike?" "Yeah, I keep it in the back room." Jason was becoming confused. "Would you get it for me?" Rita asked him as she took off the kitchen apron. Jason went to the back room and brought his bike out to the front. "What's going on? Remember the people I showed you were following me?" Rita questioned him. Jason nodded. "They are mercenaries." Mr. Cousins came walking out. "What's going on, you two?" "Mr. Cousins, I need you to trust me," Rita advised, and her confidence and urgency impressed him so much that he felt compelled to. Of course, Rita, the confusion evident on his face. Do you still keep the gun in your office? He was shocked she knew about it. Yes, I do. Rita turned to Jason's bike and started walking toward the rooftop access. I need you and Jay to go in your office and bolt the door. Rita turned back to Mr. Cousins. The breaker box is in there, isn't it? Mr. Cousins nodded. How long does the electricity need to be off for the alarm to activate? 30 seconds. After you lock yourself in, trip the breaker, wait a full minute and a half, Rita told him, then turn it back on. Rita, what is going on? Mr. Cousins asked her. Please, you have to trust me, Rita begged him. Rita, I can't let you leave here and get hurt. I would never forgive myself. Mr. Cousins shook his head. I should be fine. I can't promise you anything, but I can tell you, y'all will be safe if I leave, Rita told him. I'm 18 now. I know I still have a lot to learn, but please trust me. Mr. Cousins took Jason and headed to his office. Rita continued to the roof access. She took a strap off of a bag and lost and found and clipped each end to the bike and then slipped the strap over her. She climbed the ladder and slowly unlocked the latch. Mr. Cousins then cut the power. Rita slowly opened the hatch and looked around. She saw no one on the roof. She then carefully pulled herself and the bike up onto the roof. She slipped the bike off and walked to the edge of the roof. She counted all 5 and knew if she could get by one long enough to get away, while still giving them time to report, she would pull them away from the bowling alley. She found a weak point in the line and quickly made her plans. She retrieved the bike and removed the strap. She walked to a back corner of the building where the building was built into the hill. She mounted the bike and prepared to jump. She waited until the man was close enough and jumped. She kicked the bike out and hit him, knocking him over. She hit the ground, pedaling away. Not sure where she was going, she just rode, turning only to make sure they were following her. She continued through town, stopping in an alley only to try to call her uncle. She still didn't get an answer and tried Michael's again. What is this? She said after he didn't answer. She thought for a moment in her hiding spot. She was desperate, the team. She then texted the other members, SB Fieldhouse 15M, understand if no show, guns. Rita sent the message out to all on her baseball list, forgetting this included Jason and some of the other guys on the baseball team. Jason looked at his dad. I have to go, Dad. His dad grabbed his phone and looked at the message. Son, his dad started. Dad, I'm leaving for the Marines in a few months, Jason argued. His dad sighed. He reached over and hugged him. Go to her, son. I'm going to keep calling John. I love you, Dad, Jason said and left to go to the school. Jason grabbed some bolt cutters out of the storeroom and headed to the bike rack. He cut the lock on a bike and took off. He made it to the school in record time. She thought for a moment after the text and waited in the alley, forming her plan. She soon heard someone walking in the alley. She pulled herself further into the shadows and behind a crate. She peeked through a crack between the wall and the large wooden box and watched as 2 men stopped to report. No sign of her in the alley, one man reported. The second man stepped into the light and she could see it was Blake, the man her uncle served with. How ironic it will be to kill Thomas's daughter too, Blake said. Over the same information, it must be in their genes. The 2 men chuckled and continued down the alley. Rita waited 2 minutes and climbed out of her hiding spot. She walked her bike a short distance down the alley. She then heard movement at the other end and turned to see the 2 men raising their rifles. She started a sprint and hopped on her bike. She soon heard a shot and felt a burning sensation in her arm. She didn't miss a beat, taking the turn and continuing on to the road. They were following her, which was part of her plan. The next part of the plan is up to her friends. Jason walked into the field house. It's Jason, he whispered. Come on, Jason, Micah said, and Travis pulled him in and handed him a bat. Where is Rita? She's not here yet? Jason asked. They shook their heads. Jason looked around the room and saw all of the softball team and most of the baseball team. I'm going to go look out for her, Jason said and quietly opened the door. Y'all find hiding spots where you can still swing your bat. We need to aim for heads and hands. Jason walked out and stood in the shadows and watched the edges of campus. He soon saw her approaching on the edge of campus. He watched as a van approached quickly. She jumped a hill at the edge of the parking lot and continued her flight to the field house. She fell off her bike and headed for the field house in a sprint. She ran around the corner of the building and saw Jason standing there. "Jay, I convinced my dad to let me out." He smiled as he pulled her in. "Are you all right?" Cassie asked her as she handed her a bat. "I got shot in the arm," Rita reported. "Patty," Micah called her over, her seriousness impressing upon the other girl. Patty looked at Rita's arm, pulled out her med kit, and immediately went to work bandaging and splinting the arm. Rita looked around and saw people hiding everywhere. There were kids in the rafters, hiding around corners, and even in the showers. "It's probably broken," Patty told her with an impressive amount of confidence. Rita nodded and held her arm close as she went inside and looked around. "Give me a bat, they're not far behind me." The group heard the door open and they almost immediately heard a plink. Two of the boys dragged the man into the locker room and Patty immediately went to work with the medical tape binding and gagging the man who was out cold on the floor. They took care of 3 more in much of the same fashion. They lined up the 2 men and 2 women in the shower area. "There's one left," Rita said to the group, "and I really want this one." Everyone found new hiding spots with Rita taking the lead. They heard someone enter through the back door. The group readjusted and Rita came up behind the man and hit him on the head. He immediately fell to the ground and his gun went flying. She then hit him square across the knuckles of his right hand. 2 of the boys from baseball each got a kneecap and then dragged him to the center of the field house. She got on the phone and called Michaels again. Walking up on the field house now, Michaels announced and hung up. "Friendly's coming in," Rita announced to the group. The field house door soon opened. Austin and Michaels walked in with a team of their own. "Do you know who I am?" she questioned Blake. "You're Thomas's kid," he replied in obvious pain. "You see," Rita pointed a bat in Blake's face, "ass kicking is what's in my genes." Michaels' group came in and gathered the bound and gagged. They took the bats from the kids. The kids were then placed in small groups outside. Each of the groups were informed they were not to say anything to anyone about what had happened. They were not to even talk about it amongst themselves. Michaels and Austin pulled Rita and Jason into their own group and ordered them to wait. A medic with Michaels and Austin tended to Rita's arm while she sat on a bench in the field house. The medic walked over to Michaels and spoke to him and then walked outside. The group with Austin and Michaels replaced all of the bats and placed them in the equipment room. Rita and Jason watched as the group cleaned up any sign of the small battle. When they left, the field house looked exactly the way it did before any of them arrived. Michaels and Austin brought the 2 outside, where they noticed all the other kids had left. "Where is everyone?" Rita asked. "They were all escorted home and advised this never happened." Michaels imparted and looked over at her. "Your arm is broken, you know that, right?" "I figured," she winced. "It feels like it." "Jason," Austin questioned, "what are you doing after graduation?" "I start basic training in the fall," Jason reported. "Good," Austin nodded. "You'll do well." "What day do you go to basic?" Michaels questioned him. "September 2nd, Jason advised. "I'm coming on the same day," Michaels turned to Rita. "Jason, call your father and tell him you're okay, but you're going to have to go to Foot Rutgar for an interview." "Yes, sir." Jason stepped away and called his dad. "Where is Uncle John?" Rita asked Austin. Austin looked at his watch. "He should be here any minute." Rita then looked up to see Uncle John driving into the parking lot. He pulled up next to them and got out in his SWAT uniform. "Rita, I'm sorry," he breathed out and walked over to hug her. "It turns out the man at the SWAT standoff was creating a distraction so they could get to you." "It's okay," she sighed as they hugged. "I broke my arm though." "What?" Uncle John looked at her. "She was shot, but a fall off the bike is what ended up breaking it," Michaels reported to him. "Our medic bandaged it up, and we are going to take her to Foot Rutgar to have her checked there." "I'm going to tell Aunt Shelley. I'll spare you that wrath, but get over there and do what you need to do." "You'll also have to go through a debriefing," Uncle John explained. "We'll meet you there, and we'll wait as long as it takes." "Yes, sir," Rita said and hugged him again. Michaels looked at Jason. "Did you call your father?" "Yes, sir." Jason understood what would be coming next. John called his supervisor on the phone and explained that Rita had been injured and he needed to go to the hospital to see about her. He gave him the night off and John headed to the house with Austin to tell Shelley what had happened. He informed Shelley, who was upset, but just wanted to get to Rita to be with her. Austin was riding with the two so they could more easily get on the base. "Rita," Shelley gave her a hug, "I'm glad you're okay, but you're not off the hook for lying to me." "Yes, ma'am, but I never actually lied," she said to Aunt Shelley as she waited for an x-ray. "But that sin of omission was pretty big, and just as bad," Shelley stated. "No television for a week." "Yes, ma'am," Rita responded. "We're ready for her," the tech said, and she got up and walked into the x-ray room. She was medically cleared after the soft cast was placed on her arm, and Michaels escorted her to her interview. She spent several hours in interview with one of Michaels' team members. She was ready to have it done with when Michaels walked in and pointed to a television on the wall. He didn't say anything but picked up a remote and pressed play. A news report from earlier played on the monitor. It talked about high-level CIA intelligence officers being arrested and possibly being charged with murder of several military and intelligence personnel. The report ended and Michaels turned to her. "You did that?" She immediately shook her head as she played with a paper clip on the table. "No, I didn't." She looked up at Michaels. "My dad did." She saw Michaels smile for the first time since she met him. She was later released to Uncle John and Aunt Shelley, and the trio headed home. Austin walked up to Michaels as the three walked away. "You know, she was right about who the double agents are." "I knew she was the minute she said it," Michaels admitted. "Ronald Schertz, the one she said was probably dead." Austin turned to watch her walk away. "He is. He died shortly after he reported to his supervisor." "She's ours on September 2nd, Michaels said, and returned to the interview room to collect the information they had gathered. "I thought it was September 1st? Austin questioned him. "Jason is heading to basic on September 2nd, Michaels reported. "You aren't getting soft on me, are you?" Austin joked with Michaels. "With her I am," Michaels stated. "A little." "Yeah," Austin agreed. "She needs a break." Austin waited as he gathered everything. "I want to talk to some people I know about Jason. He needs to head in a certain direction himself." Michaels nodded in agreement.